going to live into probably in just a few seconds to Facebook and to YouTube and also to Twitter. And it looks like
Well,
we are live. Yeah, here we go. So just like that, it's you and I. How's it going?
excellent. Excellent. Well, thanks for inviting me to join you today.
I am so thrilled to have you, my sales expert guru, friend, mentor,
No-
all the above.
Pain in the neck,
No, gosh, no.
crack the whip. What else do you want to say in
I
there?
love it. No, I love chatting with you. You're one of my most inspirational people that always, as I've said to you before, and I've said to other people, whenever we talk, I'm always the actionable items. It's like, okay, so what's next? You always hold me accountable to the what's next of, where are you going next from here? And I
What?
see Keith, a few people are joining us too. So hi Keith Cowley and some of the other people joining on, but I'm just going to keep us on camera, just Bob and I on camera here. So good to see some people joining us. This is awesome.
Excellent.
Yay. So I think, obviously you bring a lot of pull to our conversation, Bob Weese. So a lot of people are here to get all your insights and perspective. Even some people had mentioned both on LinkedIn and maybe even privately that they're excited to see you speak. So
I am flattered and honored and humbled and not very often speechless.
well, I'm going to tell people who you are for the people who don't know. And if people who don't know, you foolish people, how do you not know who Bob Weiss is? So Bob is the managing director of B2B Sales Connections, a LinkedIn expert, a keynote speaker, and award-winning sales trainer who focuses on helping professionals and organizations grow their business through social selling and better sales processes. In addition to both author, I have your book.
You got the book?
Author and advisor. He's also the head coach and founder of the Ajax Fencing Club,
Which is stuck in limbo since pandemic started.
Yes, which is not fun for all those out there. Who's the most famous? Well, maybe not like who's the most famous? Maybe fictional fencer out there.
Like a Zorro, I would guess, would probably be the biggest one.
Okay, so actually, this is completely off script because you know that I send you pictures, send you questions ahead of time, not pictures, ahead of time. But I know you do a lot of keynote speaking and Toastmasters, an award-winning Toastmaster, so it's not going to be too tough to put you on the spot. I assume that fencing has to do with selling. How does you do bring that into your sales topics a bit too, right?
Yeah, I do all the time, and I think any sport is a lot like people who are involved in sales. In fencing, first of all, most salespeople walk into selling backwards. They're just, someone says, like me, I was in broadcasting and somebody one day we got talking, here's a rate card, go on out and sell radio advertising. And so the same thing happens for a lot of people in sales. They're just literally in a job and somebody says, hey, can you take over this account, try to sell it? And so when I do fencing, we always talk about if someone was going to learn to start fencing, they wouldn't go, well, let's just go buy all the equipment and then race off to a tournament. They would find a club, they would find a coach, and they would learn what needs to be done. And they would go through the basics, starting simple, learning bit by bit what they need to do before they even think about doing a first tournament, let alone competing against somebody else. And then so there is a process to it, and there's steps they learn and they gain confidence, experience, and everything along the way. And so it's very similar to when I teach people in sales. It's let's go back and look at where are you now? What are you comfortable doing? What are you not comfortable doing? And how do we help you move forward? And I'll tell you, when you've got the fencing mask on, I think you can see one up on the cupboard behind me there, you do have that added protection too, where when you're selling, there is no protection. When somebody stabs you, it's like, oh, I don't like you. I don't want to buy from you. It's,
Everybody
oh my
wants to do the
gosh.
stabbing, not being the stab, not being stabbed,
Precisely.
which is like sales,
Yeah.
right?
And the same thing, it takes practice. You don't become a national champion or an Olympic champion overnight. You spend that 10,000 hours practice, working with a coach to get to the level you need to get to. And the same thing happens. The minute people move into sales, they forget all of that. Why do I need to learn anything? Just I go out and try to do it. And then they get frustrated, upset, and it falls apart because it's not working for them.
Because they don't have the fundamentals there, right? That's the
Correct.
whole part about Most of us want to run when we haven't even learned how to walk, and most of us probably want to get in and get the sword out and fence and do all the fancy stuff without
Yes.
understanding the principles and the foundation behind it.
My fencing master actually came from Paris, where he learned to fence. And when he came to Canada, he said the hardest thing was in Paris, you could take 6 months of fencing lessons and you never held a sword.
Wow.
It was all footwork and distance and timing and all those sorts of things. In Canada, we don't get them holding swords for about 2 weeks. And then they only get to play with the Nerf swords. And then from the Nerf swords, they graduate to plastic swords, and plastic swords, they graduate to actually the swords that we use for training. But yeah, it's just that difficulty of, in North America, you think you throw the ball out in the soccer pitch and everyone goes and plays the game. No, we need to come back and break it down and learn it properly.
And so I know too, and we've had these discussions before, that I always consider myself to be a poor salesperson. I used to work in retail sales. I used to sell advertising sales, and mine was all about relationships. And I always felt like I was the antithesis of a good salesperson. I wasn't a closer. Because I often was like, oh, I don't like I don't want to close the
pushy,
deal.
salesy,
Pushy, and so there is a reframe to understand, what does a salesperson do? And we're all in sales. That's what I loved about Daniel Pink's book about Drive.
Yeah.
Is that we're all trying to get, even if I'm trying to get my kid into bed at night, I'm trying to
Yep.
sell to him. What's the importance of getting a decent night's sleep? So I'm sure you probably deal with that a lot. Is that people are like, I'm not in sales. Is that right?
And it's so easy. And I'll answer both of your questions that you threw at me in there. Notice how I was able to parse them both out. The first one is, there are really good people at building relationships, but they're not good at moving the sale forward.
Mm.
And, you've probably heard the term professional visitors. They can go out and they meet with clients day in and day out. And I'm the first to admit, when I started in sales, I was a professional visitor. I went out and people liked me. We got along well. We chatted about things. We could spend hours and hours talking, and it never resulted in sales. And it was only when I started to work with a former mentor of mine, Terry Mosley, who was a manager, who really got us into, how do we move a sale forward, and asking the right questions, building the need, and then letting them figure out how you can help them solve that need. And then not being afraid to say, okay, we've done this. Now let's move to this. Now we're moving to this. So we always talk about, in sales, you've always got to move this. The next step has to come forward. So if you and I have an initial chat and you say, hey, Bob, that's interesting, let's talk again, I could say, great, and off I go. Or I could say, great, Leslie, I'm going to get my calendar out right now. Is next Tuesday at 2:00 good? Or would you like Wednesday at 3:00? And confirm it, send you an invite immediately, lock it down. And then when we get on that phone call, we discuss, what's the next point? Okay, Leslie, what's the next point? Do you need a demonstration? Do you need a proposal? Okay, let's lock that down. What's our next step? Mm-hmm. And so many people don't do that. Hey, yeah, I'll get back to you. And then you play this telephone tag, email tag, text tag, and weeks and weeks come by. And you've probably seen this yourself. How many times did you thought a sale was going to close, and then something happened at the company and stopped the sale from moving forward? Now, I actually have a sale right now that I made a year ago that I still have not done for the client. They paid for it up front. It's on the books. And it's like, well, Bob, we got this happening, and then we changed, and something else changed, and something else changed. I just sit back, and every once in a while, it's like, do you want me to do your training for you? Because you have paid for it. So yeah. Wouldn't you rather have that? It's paid for, or it's been moved forward, it's done, than, oh, well, Leslie decided to go off and do something else, and maybe she'll come back in another 6 weeks or 6 months. Who knows?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So it sounds like sales is a lot of strategy.
Yeah, very much so.
More strategy than one would think.
Yeah, you've got to plan what you're going to do, plan what you're doing with your accounts. The people who don't, again, it's all over the place. Yesterday, I was doing a training session for a client on the use of a customer relationship management database, CRM. And the biggest problem with CRMs is people institute them, but never use them. Yeah, I use Salesforce. Well, really, I don't use Salesforce. I have Salesforce, or I use Zoho or Insightly or one of those other ones. So the strategy is, who am I reaching out to? How am I reaching out to them? What's my messaging look like? Is it email, LinkedIn, phone, text? What else can I do? And so there's always got to be a strategy behind it. So with my clients, we first thing we do is we create a sales playbook. And the playbook basically breaks down, like you teach, who's your ideal customer? How do you reach the ideal customer? What's the messaging look like? So if somebody new comes in, I can instantly say, here's the playbook, start to read that, and then I'll train you on how to reach out to clients. And then I'll train you on how to do discovery calls, and we'll practice some. Then we'll do some demonstrations if you do demonstrations in your business, and we'll practice some. And a lot of it is, and this comes back to fencing. In fencing, you practice the same move over and over and over. And as a coach, I make little changes to the nuances of what you're doing until you get it down to you do it without even thinking about it. In sales, people don't practice. When I coach people, we always run simulations. And we run simulations for cold calls, for emails, for meetings, to the point of where if I give you an objection, like you've heard it 25 times, you go, oh yeah, no problem, here I go. As opposed to, I'm sorry, Leslie. Oh, gee, I'm not really sure. Let me get back to you on that.
Mm-hmm.
There we go again.
Yeah. And do you find, and this is only because you and I both teach like new people that are becoming new Canadians or people that want to come into the Canadian market, the Canadian nuanced way of doing things, we tend to not be very direct when we're saying no, I think. Do you find that in Canada, that are there nuances as a salesperson that you have to sort of pull that out of Canadians?
No, I think that's a self-fulfilling prophecy that people think all Canadians are too polite and are afraid of being forward. But some of the most successful salespeople I know in Canada and the United States do well in both because they are able to move things forward. So if you've got someone who is wishy-washy and you become wishy-washy, you're going, oh, I'm trying to be polite with them. Well, really, if you need my services and you're not sure about it, then one of us has to be sure. and so let me give you an example. You decide you want to join a fitness club. And so you're like, well, you go into the fitness club and well, I'm not really sure. And if the person sitting across from you is going, well, I want you to be sure, let's think about it, then you may not sign up. Where if you come into the fitness club and it's like, Leslie, what do you want to attain here? What's your goal? Well, I want to feel better. I want to slide on those jeans I used to get into. I want to be out running around chasing after my kids. I want to get in the garden and not feel like I'm groaning every time I get up and down. And so you're telling me what you want to do. My role now is to say, okay, so these are the outcomes you're looking for by joining our fitness club and helping with your eating plan too, showing up, making sure you're doing what we're doing. We're going to help you get there. Does that sound like a plan? Now, I know, Leslie, you really don't want to sign up now because you're thinking about it, but let's face it. You didn't do it 6 months ago. You didn't do it last year. If I don't help you by saying, let's twist your arm a little bit here and get you to make a decision, you're probably going to go off again. And it's like in the car business. They say if somebody leaves the dealership, they don't make the sale. And so the car dealers, and that's why car dealers, salespeople usually have such a bad reputation. They know when you walk out, they sound like they're being pushy because if you walk out, they know they're probably not going to get you. But that happens all over the place. So how do you do it without being pushy, with actually showing compassion and empathy, but saying the same thing? Leslie, come on now. You want to do this. You're going to do this. Let's just do this.
Yeah.
No.
That's kind of cool. And I mean, I know you're all about authenticity too. I mean, that's a big part of who you are. And that's why we're friends, is because it's all about the authentic connection. I love that you educate me on this stuff. It makes me feel a little bit better in sales because I love all the relationship stuff. I like all the, how's your kids? How are the dog? How's it going? I'm not as good with sort of pushing people outside their comfort zone as I could be, insofar as asking them, so what do you want to get out of it? And I think it's either in your book, or we talked about this before. Maybe you have a different metaphor than I do. Is the when Alice in Wonderland gets to the Cheshire Cat, right? Do you have that in your book? I think
no. That's I think it's part of my business partner Susan put that in the book.
Okay.
But
Well, the Cheshire, Alice in Wonderland gets to the Cheshire Cat, and Alice says to the cat, or the cat says to Alice, where do you want to go? And Alice says, I don't know. And then the Cheshire Cat says, well, then any path will take you
any
there.
path will take
I'm
you.
kind of an Alice, admittedly. There's times that I am not, and I know that you are a metrics guy. You love, as being in sales, you're really about the numbers and things like that. So it's good I love chatting with you because you get me focused on stop throwing the spaghetti against the wall, Leslie. Get focused.
But that's part of what I have to do as a coach is I have to pull you back onto that role. If you're going down all sorts of paths, and you and I have this talk all the time, it's like, okay, you're doing this, but what's your plan? What's the outcome you're trying to get to? And it's the same thing if I'm talking to someone in fencing. If it's a young student and all they want to do is recreational fencing, come out, have fun, have a good camaraderie with the rest of the kids in the club, then that's fine. I will support them, I will train them, and I will get them to that point. But if you want to be the nationally ranked athlete and go off and fence at the national level, then we've got to have a different path. And I'm going to treat you differently. I'm not going to treat you better. I'm not going to treat you worse. But I know now that we have to think about training seriously as opposed to a recreational fencer who their idea of a warm up is they stretch 3 times and tie their shoelaces. No, it's different for different people. And I think we all have to learn that as opposed to we all take every situation and create this, try to get the same outcome from it.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. I have a question for you because something that you brought my attention to. There's a bunch of different things you bring my attention to, but the one thing that I tell me about this post that you made just recently on LinkedIn. You posted about hackers sending voicemail links and emails with malware. Tell me about this. I haven't seen this yet.
Yeah, it's starting to come up more and more, and I guess it's like anything else. They're getting tired of email, or the junk mail folder catches it now. So the chances of it actually arriving in your inbox are getting very slim. So now they're hacking people's LinkedIn. And I know they were doing it in Facebook quite a bit. We've seen it. Just a couple of days ago, I got a connection request from somebody I know quite well. And it's like, why would I get a connection request? I've already got one. And I went and took a look at it, and I contacted her directly, and she said, I've been hacked. And so what's happening in LinkedIn? It's the same thing. People are able to hack. People don't have two-step authentication in place. They don't have strong passwords in place. And in this case, the person sent me a message which had an audio link in it. And I'm kind of going, well, why would that person send me an audio link? So I messaged back to them, and they were like, oh my God, don't open it.
Wow.
And then I guess it was about 3 or 4 days before somebody else had done that. So audio messages on LinkedIn are starting to catch on, as well as video messages.
Right.
So you can actually create a 30-second, 60-second, and people like them because it's different. Okay, I can read the message. Leslie wants to connect with me. Okay, here we go again, right? Or, oh, here's a message from Leslie saying something about social media, and I click on it to watch it. Well, now they're embedding this malware in there too. And because people aren't expecting it, it's easy to get caught on it. It's the other one I keep hearing about is people sending out gift certificates for things like Costco and Best Buy and Home Depot, and it looks like a gift certificate. And if you would like to see what our latest offerings are, click here. And they're clicking on it, and it's malware that's being embedded on their computers. So it's getting really scary. And from the sales side of things, it once again reinforces how important it is that, to control your medium, to control your message, so you don't get your identity stolen, you don't get your email addresses spoofed, and to be very careful. So my first message to clients, or my first couple of messages to someone I don't know, never has any attachments. They're strictly email text or LinkedIn text. Mm-hmm. And then it will build on that over time. But I would rather say to you, go to my email address or go to my LinkedIn or go to my website than try to send you something. And if the filters aren't there in LinkedIn, it could become a real problem for them going forward.
That's so sad because I did connect with, I was using Clubhouse a few weeks ago and met some really great other LinkedIn people on there. And one of the gals was using those voice intros as, "Hey, Leslie, it was nice to chat with you today in Clubhouse." And I was thinking, well, this is a really nice little personal touch that not everybody's doing. And that's what we want to do, is be remarkable
Yep.
and be different and stand out. And now when I hear that the people are using this as a hack, then I'm like, oh, crumb. Now, that's unfortunate, because and then it takes away from people that are using it for good,
Yep.
which is really unfortunate. And hopefully LinkedIn will sort of catch up on getting rid of those people. Because I mean, what I originally said in your post was, well, I don't have that problem because I'm very selective on the people that I connect with. And you said, no, it was people that I knew.
It was, yeah, both of them were people that I know and I know quite well, but they don't, LinkedIn or email or hackers don't care. They're just looking for somebody that they can break into, and then they've got their database. So you think you could have thought it was coming directly from me.
Yeah.
And it might've been like, oh, I was just back and forth with Bob a couple times. All of a sudden I got a message from him, and you click on it and boom, you've now got something on your computer that you don't know about.
That's wild. Yeah, it's so sad. And now I'm gonna go pivot back into the whole like sales part of things, insofar
Okay.
as like we talk. You help me understand it. I'm still not 100% about the whole cold calling thing, right? But I believe in you, and I believe in your approach, because you do it with you when you're using the cold calling, and you do mass connection requests and things like that through
Yep.
LinkedIn. You do it from a place. You come from a good place when you're doing it, when you're working with your clients, and it's
I
really,
hope so.
yeah. Well, it's you're not coming from the spam place. I know that. That doesn't help. That doesn't help to help your clients. So tell us a little bit about obviously we know back in the day, in the traditional way of sales, it was about the cold call. But you think that there's still a place for cold calling nowadays?
It's yeah, that this is one that I get called out on all the time. And first, let me ask you a question. Do you know who the biggest user of cold calling in North America is right now?
I have absolutely no idea.
Google.
What?
Yeah, right. Google has teams of people doing cold calls.
They never called me.
I think I've probably had 3 in the last year, and the last 2 times I've actually spoken to the people who called up. There is a move towards everything has to be search engine, Google AdWords, keywords, websites, and all these sorts of things. And the challenge, and I'm the first one, we use digital marketing. You know me, I'm pushing out blogs, articles. We do that religiously.
Yeah.
However, if you need to move quickly and you're trying to do things by just sending out digital this and digital that, post an ad, sorry, not post an ad, post an article, the chances of it going somewhere can be very, very slim.
Organic reach.
Yeah, I have a client last year who did a post that got 1 million views, right? And the 1 million views converted into 0. Nobody came back to them and said, wow, this is great. I want to buy whatever you're selling kind of thing.
That's the almighty metric. People get so excited. I got 1 million views.
Yeah, I got 50,000 likes. I got 50. That's the thing. Maybe if you're the Kardashians selling lipstick or whatever it is they sell, people go, oh, they're doing it, I'm going to. But that's not happening for a lot of us. So outbound is still one of the strongest things you can do. And when I say outbound, I'm usually talking about phone, LinkedIn, and email. And so we use these with our clients regularly. And we have a telemarketing group that works for my company. I have 3 telemarketers. So we're probably making 10,000 calls a month. And we can track those calls right down. So the secret of the cold call is no different than the secret of the cold email or the cold LinkedIn message. 1, is it your ideal target market? 2, is it the right message for the target market? And 3, is your timing right for when you're doing that? So if I sent you an email talking about the need for nuclear waste management in the Durham region, and you don't give a damn about nuclear waste management in the Durham region, you would look at it as junk mail and it would probably just disappear. Whether I emailed you, LinkedIn you, or phoned you, or even if I put a post up on LinkedIn, you probably would just go, who cares about it? Now, on the other hand, if I said, Leslie, there's about to be a nuclear waste management dump on the end of your street,
Yeah.
Again, if I sent you an email, a LinkedIn message, or a phone call, any one of those would probably impact you.
100%.
So when we do our calling, we are calling a select target market, knowing what the trigger is for that target market, and opening up the conversation. Now, the other thing we know is, and this is, as I said, we do thousands upon thousands of calls. We know that about 40% of the time that phone call is not going to be answered, or it's going to go into one of those massive calling trees where you can't find out who the right person is. So we know that 40% of the time we make the dial, nothing happens, on to the next one we go. But we also know that of the 60% that let's say there's another 10% that are wrong numbers or things like that. Big deal. How long does it take you to dial a number? This number is not in service, or it turns out it's wrong. So we know about 50% of the people we reach out to are going to connect with us. Now, people always say, oh, the success rate of cold calling is like 2%. It could be, but we've had it as high as 20 and 25%. Usually we average about 10 to 15%. What's a good email campaign? 1%, 3% maybe. So if we've got the right target message, the right target market, we'll make the phone call, introduce them to something that is interesting to them. And then we don't try to sell you something. And as a matter of fact, I don't let my clients create brochures about their products. We create insight documents about the industry. And so that's a really big piece of what we're talking about. So when a client is contacting right now, and I'll give you an example. I work with a company that sells artificial intelligence for the casino industry for their marketing departments. Now, casinos want to make money. So when we make those phone calls for that company, we know about 50% of the time when we get on the phone, we say, do you use artificial intelligence in your marketing right now? And they're going, what?
What does that mean?
What are you talking about? Yeah. So we don't try to sell them by saying, well, let me send you a brochure on our marketing product. We go, we have some information on how artificial intelligence in casinos is increasing profitability and helping drive more players back into your casino. Now, what marketing person isn't going to say, I'd like to see that? And then we send them a one-page document which talks about how AI is working. Then there's a follow-up call when they've read that to say, hey, Leslie, I know you got the document on AI and casino marketing. Do you have any questions about that? Knowing full well they're probably going to say no. But what we then do is go into, well, if you don't have any questions, Leslie, what prompted you to be interested in AI for your casino? And that gets the conversation going. Right? Where a brochure, it's just like, yeah, I looked at all the cars you've got. I don't want to buy a car. Boom. Right? So anything will work or anything won't work in marketing if it's done right. And I want to throw a really crazy one at you. I have a client that still uses fax broadcasting for lead generation.
Yeah.
There are industries out there that still religiously use the fax machine.
Yeah.
And they sign up, I think last year it was something like 500 new clients through their fax broadcasting. It's knowing your target market, knowing how to reach them, and having the right message. And I don't care what your brand is or what your preferred way of reaching out. If you've got it. You and I also know that speaking from the stage is huge. Why do we speak at trade shows and conventions and all these sorts of things? Because now you're an expert, an authority in front of 100 people or 200 people or 500 people, depending on where you are, talking about your subject as a subject matter authority. And at the end, people come up to you and it's like, Leslie, that's really interesting. We need to have a chat about this because my company needs to do this. Now you are the expert they're looking to hire.
100%.
Not a brochure.
And I think, and this is why, even though I haven't done the cold call thing since I used to work in advertising sales myself, I haven't done literally the cold calling thing for a long time. But I think to your point, and we've agreed upon this, it's just doing whatever we can to get the conversation started.
Yep.
Because it's not talking at our clients, it's talking with them. And go ahead.
And I ask my clients right up front, will you make cold calls? And if they won't, it's like, that's fine. Okay. Then we have to use LinkedIn and email and blogs and articles and LinkedIn postings and all Facebook postings. If you won't do cold calls, that's fine, but just tell me up front and we'll do something else. Or, people hire our services to do that for us too. But, don't try to get somebody, how many people sign up for exercise campaigns or sign up for gyms, and they do it in January, and by about the fourth week in January or the first 2 weeks in February, that's it. I mean, I think the number at the gym is 85% of the people who pay for memberships never go. That's how they can afford to stay in business. It's not the people who are using them. If it was only people who use it every single week, they'd be starving.
Yeah. So is sales still a numbers game, do you think? Do you think it's a little bit of like, if we just, I mean, because I know that you love your metrics, which is why I don't doubt you when you say, cold calling works, cold messaging works. You can quantify all of this. So it's not as if you're just doing it and willy-nilly. There's definitely, there's results that you're producing. Otherwise you wouldn't be in business. So is it still a numbers game, or is it a targeted number game?
A targeted number game. And that's the problem, is because so many people think it's just a numbers game. So they're calling. And a client I worked with last month, they had their salespeople doing cold calls and emails on LinkedIn. And as soon as I started looking at their target market, it's like, okay, your average customer has over 100 employees in their business. So why do you have people calling companies that are 5 or 10 people? Why are you sending out emails to companies that are mom and pops and stuff like that? They were doing the old, here's the telephone book kind of thing, call everybody. That is a total waste. Identify your target markets. The better, the more laser focused that is, the better your results will be. And we even see that with our own clients when we do the calling programs. The better the market, the better the message, the more targeted it is, the better our results are going to be. And so when someone comes back to me, like, I'll give you an example. We will not make phone calls for website companies. Bob, I want you to call all the companies in the Durham region and ask them if they'd like a new website. No, it's a waste of our time because it won't be successful for you. Now, on the other hand, if you said, Bob, we have developed a new, because of websites having to be accessible in the next 3 to 4 months, we have developed a new program to make your website and your business accessible, and it will comply with Canadian accessibility laws for July 1st. That's probably a phone call we'd make, because now I could phone up to you and say, Leslie, well, sorry, no, because you're under 20 employees. So if I knew you were, let's say, 50 employees, hi, Leslie, I understand you're in charge of your physical location for your company. Do you know that the new accessibility laws come into effect July 1st? Oh, no. Well, now here we go. We're not going to send you a brochure. You need to know this, because as of July 1st, you could be penalized by the government, charged, have to make the upgrades, and make the upgrades at their price, not at your price. Would you like some information on what's happening? So now we're sending out information about that. And we're actually doing that for a client right now. And then the follow-up is somebody calls and says, okay, Leslie, you got the documentation. What have you decided you have to do to for your business? Do you need some ramps? We build ramps. Do you need some, and that's their lead in.
Yeah, that's an interesting, and it's a complete side note, but Richard Gatter, who's a mutual friend of ours, and CMS Web Solutions, that's what they specialize in, is accessible. And he's really enlightened me, and it's a complete side discussion on not only just the accessibility, the legal requirements for accessibility, but how it's not even just excluding people who are disabled, but it's excluding a huge audience of people who watch videos like this, and they're using the closed captioning because they're not listening online. All these different ways that we're excluding our audiences if we're not putting the user first, regardless of ability or disability. It's like, do you not want to make money? And so it was eye-opening, because I had just assumed that accessibility, it didn't matter to me. And as I'm getting older, needing the reading glasses maybe a little bit more than I used to, I'm going into that audience where things are getting a little bit more like, I need to see a little bit further, and that's accessible. Those kinds of things that we just think, well, I'm not physically disabled, so then I don't need to worry about this.
Here's a quick one that I learned from a member of my family. He is colorblind. All right, so there's a buy now button on a website, and it's red or orange. Doesn't even see it. So searching the website, and unfortunately it was red or orange with a white buy now logo in the center of it. So
Wow.
when he looks at it, it's a white website with just these small discolorations and red, orange, off color browns. And it's just, okay, so what do you need to do? Well, we need to highlight that. It needs to go in black. And some simple things that people don't know. And I know we're getting off topic there, but yeah, it's very, very important to
It
make
is so
sure.
fascinating. All those things, and again, like whether it's sales or marketing or whatever it is, it's getting in the users, like getting behind the lens of the. Like I've said this a million times. Anybody who's listening, it's like when you're inside the jar, you can't see the label. We get so close to what we're doing, we forget to be objective
Yeah.
about how do we get on the same side of the table as our target audience, so that they understand. We understand how they see things, because well, what makes you different? Well, I'm the best. Well,
Yeah.
but how are you the best to them? Like, what
Yeah.
difference does that make? And I think, you're very good about asking those hard questions. Maybe it comes from your journalism background of getting right to the negative. Like, so what makes you the best? Like, who cares?
Yeah.
Asking those hard hitting questions.
And on that note too, when you're mentioning that, think about all the websites that have a contact us form. In engineering or manufacturing, contact us forms aren't really good. You're better to say, ask an engineer question. So maybe there's something happening in your industry and you're going, man, I don't know what to do here. So you go on to an engineering website or a couple of engineering websites and you see this, contact us, I don't care about this, but one of them says, ask an engineer a question. Now you type in, this metal doesn't do this with this. What would you recommend? They get an answer back from an engineer, but it's now opened up a lead because it's opened up a discussion.
So you're joining the conversation they already have in their head.
Yeah.
And oftentimes, and one of my other buddies that I interviewed a few weeks ago, Adam Smith, is a user experience expert. That's his specialization. And I said, well, you're trying to get people from point A to point Z or whatever. And he goes, no, I kind of see it as you're dropping somebody in the middle of somewhere and you're trying to get them to where they need to go. And I was like, well, that's an interesting read point, because we think of it as linear.
Yeah.
It's not a linear journey.
Yeah.
So you're right. When you kind of get on the same side of the table, understanding the language that someone is speaking, understanding, okay, what are you frustrated with? What are your challenges? Where does your brain go when you have to make that decision? Are you going to Google? Are you going to social media? How are you finding out that data? And there's definitely not one simple path to purchase. There's no doubt about it.
No. And you have to determine that for your clients. So if you're selling a product that you can put up on Amazon, that's totally different than if you're selling a training program for LinkedIn. Right. You put your programs on Amazon, are you going to get any sales? No, but there are other places you can do that. And that's what we have to know. And a lot of it becomes trial and error.
Yeah.
And this is why it's important for people to come to people like yourself for LinkedIn, myself for sales coaching, because we've seen it, done it, and probably seen a ton of the mistakes, so we can help you get there faster. So, if someone said to me, I want my kid to be a fencer, and they bought all the equipment and threw them into a tournament, well, what results am I going to expect? They're going to make every mistake that comes along. Or, okay, Bob, we want to send our child to your school, take coaching from you, and you will walk them through it. And if a student starts doing something, I can say, well, here's why you don't do that. Show them why you don't do that. Have them practice it kind of the wrong way, practice it the right way until they're going, oh my gosh, that's so simple. And then they get beyond it faster. And so we talk a lot in the coaching industry of coactive coaching. And I call myself a proactive. I am not going to stand along the sidelines and go, so Leslie, how do you feel about that last sales call you did? What do you think you could, I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing that. I'm going to say, Leslie, what went wrong with that sales call? Here's what I'm going to ask you. And then I'm going to say, here's what I saw. And let's break it down to, or maybe it's you're going down the road and I go, well, where do you think that road's going to take you, Leslie? As opposed to, Leslie, stop. I've seen so many clients go down that road and it's been a train wreck for them.
Right.
So let's pull them back fast. And this is why, through the work you and I do with things like the Spark Center, one of the regional innovation centers, working with startups, they can waste a lot of time and money on things that they have no idea where they're going. They may have been great at inventing a product, but when it comes to sales and marketing, they're lost. Our job is to keep them on a narrow track so they don't go, well, I want to do this ads and Facebook, and I want to do this, and I want to do this, and they're all over the place. Let's pull them back, find out what's going to work, and then put them on the track and then help to make them successful down that track. And I think we do that with anyone when we're coaching or training them. It's like, get you on the track, tell you when you're going off what could happen. I'll let you crash and burn a few times for sure, but let's not waste a lot of time.
Well, and I think as a new business owner, I remember going through this in 2009 when I started up my business, the unique value proposition. Well, I'm cheaper than the next guy.
Yeah.
Right? Which, we soon learn. And Seth Godin says that, if you're on the race to the bottom, the worst thing is you just might win. So oftentimes, as I'm sure you tell your clients too, what's the value? There's the value. So that's what you're helping people to extrapolate the true value, because you can give the metaphor about this of the hammer and when you're buying a hammer and so forth, right? When people don't necessarily realize that, what they're selling isn't necessarily what the person is getting. If that, I'm not not making sense out of the question, but you know what I'm trying to say.
And that was a major screw up that I made back in 2008 when we started this business. My business partner and I were very good at sales training, worked for a Fortune 500 company, trained all across North America for many years, all of their teams. And when we started the company, we were like, hey, Leslie, we do sales training. Well, I got news for you. Nobody wants sales training. They don't think they need sales training. When we change from talking about sales training to saying we help companies generate leads, reduce the buying cycle so they can close more sales to build their revenue, all of a sudden people started saying, how do you do that?
That I need.
Yeah, right?
That I need, yeah.
Yeah. And so that's the thing. So when I talk to clients now, especially in that startup and even some people have been doing this for years, what you make is your output. So for someone who's doing LinkedIn profiles, your output is you write a profile for them. They don't buy the output, they buy the outcome. They buy a better LinkedIn profile, so it will allow them to connect with more people and hopefully grow their business. My output is not sales training, my output is they get greater confidence in their selling skills so they can generate more leads and reduce the buying cycle and close more sales. And we're looking at that same thing, the AI marketing. They have a software program that does marketing for casinos. What the casino buys is more trips from every player and more money in the pockets of the casinos, as if they need more money, right? But think about what you do as your output. You were mentioning that Keith was on the line, okay? It's the same thing. Yes, he does loans for companies, but the output is he gives them money so they can grow their business or buy the products they need to expand their business. The loan is just the output. The outcome is what I'm buying it for.
Yeah. And so the different metaphors, like with the hammer, I think people often will use. Like when you're buying a hammer, you're not buying a hammer, you're buying the solution. You're buying something that's going to
driving a nail, you're building exactly.
Yeah. So it's and then what is that hammer going to do for you? And I think we all in some ways are a hammer, but we don't necessarily realize that that's exactly what we're doing, is we're getting people to the destination they want and the value of it. Yeah.
And if I'm the technical person who built the hammer, I'm telling you about the anti-shock handle on it and the way it fits in your hand and the fact that the claw is a little bit different angle so it pulls nails. And basically, Leslie, you've walked in and said, I want to hang a picture.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
So, but that's it. It's the guy selling is trying to convince you of one thing, and you're just kind of going, is this damn thing going to help me put my picture up by putting a nail in the wall?
Right.
That happens all the time. I was on with one client this morning. Their demonstrations used to be 1 hour. Every time a client was invited to a demonstration of the product, it was 1 hour. I got them to change it about 6 months ago. Their demonstration now is 15 minutes or less. And guess what? They're selling more. The demos were going so long, they were throwing so much at the client, it became the shopping list. The clients were going, oh my God, I don't know. Now the demo is focused on, you want it to do A, B, C, and D. Here's how it does it. Here's how simple it does it. Here's how easy we can install it. And here's how long it's going to take us to train you. So you're going to make it work. And their sales have gone up substantially because they've walked away from trying to tell everybody everything.
I'm guilty of that, definitely. I like to talk, I like to talk. But I do know from some of the presentations that I've put together that the human attention span is about 6 seconds,
Yeah.
which is the same attention span as a goldfish.
The
And
old
that is
goldfish one.
terrifying. And I've noticed that it's getting worse and worse. The last time I actually read a book, I mean, I'm not a visual processor. I realize that the different submodalities, and this, I don't know if you teach this in your sales coaching too, but different people process information differently.
Yep.
That's I'm going to be talking with somebody next week about neurolinguistic programming, and
I was just going to ask you that.
yeah, so I'm talking with him next week. It's really interesting. So he's a hypnotist, and that's his. I don't know if you got to see him at one of Amy Riddell's conferences, but he does one of those stage. He's a stage hypnotist, but he embeds all these great positive messaging and things like that. So
Yeah.
anyway, I've kind of gone off topic a little bit, but realizing with neurolinguistic program that people process information visual, auditory, kinesthetically, and then olfactory with smell and gustatory taste. And so in sales, do you find that, is it just sort of natural? There's different things that we do, obviously mirroring and that kind of thing, but do you teach people about recognizing those signals of if someone says, well, does that sound right to you? Does that feel right to you? Does that look like to you? Do you think that that's all hogwash, or do you think that
No, I agree 100%. And that comes back to, you talked about my broadcasting before I got into sales.
Mhm.
The big thing in broadcasting is you had to learn that, because I can ask you a question, you can give me an answer, and I could leave it and go on to my next question. Or maybe if I'm watching your facial expressions, your body language, I can change that next question to say, oh, hold on now. Um, Leslie's looking around up in the sky, trying to think of things. She's got more to say on that. So I could just say, tell me more. So when I go, there's a couple things. There's teaching sales reps in 10 or 12 weeks, A, B, C, D, E, here's the 12-step program. And then there's going into more deep dives. So I'll give you an example of Sun Life Financial. So Sun Life has had me come in and speak about doing better relationships with your customer. And we talk about that, patterning your customer, mirroring your customer, working things with their tone. So if you've got someone who speaks very, very fast, you pick up your tone a little bit too, so you mirror what they're doing. If you've got someone who speaks slowly and concisely, you bring yourself down to that, because you can have that, they kind of tune out because it's not working. So there's pieces like that we also do. There's other things which are understanding, is this person an assertive person or more of an amiable person? Or so you learn, if that's their personality, how do I deal with it? And I used to have a boss who was like, tell me exactly what I need to know, and then tell me you're going to do it, and then come back and tell me it's done. Right. Now, there was another boss at my level. She used to go in and talk to this guy, and she'd bring in a 100-page PowerPoint presentation to convince him about something. And these two just drove each other crazy, because she wanted to have every single thing documented as proof. And he loved it when I would walk in and just say, I need $50,000. This is what we're going to do. This is what the results are going to be. And you can kick my ass if I'm wrong, but I know I'm right. And I would get decisions quickly, where she would get decisions never happening, because it's just like, oh my, he tuned out right off thing. Also comes back to what you were alluding to also, but catching attention spans, right? How many times do you see people who start, hi, my name is Bob Weese. My company is B2B Sales Connections. We've been in business for, and they go into all of that, right? Think about the TV shows that you watch. Do they start with the commercials and then start to run the credits and then go into the show? Or do they start with the 30-second or 90-second vignette to hook you? Oh, I'm going to watch the show. Then comes the credits and the commercials, and then they go back into the show. Same thing with the message, whether it's an email, a LinkedIn, anything you're doing face-to-face, you've got to hook the person right off the bat.
And that's a bit of storytelling too. I mean, I think we're all storytellers.
Great way to do it. Yeah.
In some way, shape, or form. We're all doing what we can to persuade.
Yeah.
Because really, that's what sales is. And we look through the sort of the sales funnel, is that awareness, interest, and desire kind of are the marketing bucket.
Mm-hmm.
Getting people just to lean in a little bit further, and then the sales is that next step. And sometimes, do you find that that's sometimes, well, I was going to say, is that the hardest step? But I guess not if you've done the other steps properly.
Well, you going back to our calling, and as you were talking about that first 6 seconds or 9 seconds, whatever it happens to be,
Mhm.
on our telephone, and we track all of these. When we're making phone calls, we always look at it as this way. I've got 15 seconds to get to 30 seconds, to get to 90 seconds, to get to 5 minutes. So when we make a phone call, if we get to the first 15 seconds successfully, the chances are this person's going to give us 30 seconds. And if in the next 30 seconds, they're still enticed by what we're talking about, then we'll probably get to 90 seconds. And then we've got them really starting to get engaged in it. And we can probably get them to a 5-minute conversation. And
Mhm.
I've had people that have gone, 15 seconds, 30 seconds, 90 seconds, 5 minutes, and 45 minutes later, we're still on a cold call that they never expected.
Mm.
Right? So if you think about it, when you are doing something, you are focused on something completely foreign. I phone you. The first 15 seconds, I have to break your thought train from whatever it is you are focusing on.
Mhm.
And I know you've got a dog at home. So if you think about the dog starts barking, 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 what do? You go over and you give it a push, or you do something to shuffle it up, and it's going, whoa, hold on, mom, what are you saying to me here? And it focuses. Maybe the kids do that too, right?
Yeah.
But you have to break them of that bit at 15 seconds, 30 seconds. And then once they change their focus to you,
Mhm.
now you've got them. The problem is a lot of people don't catch them in that first 30 to 90 seconds. And the person is just tuning out, tuning out, tuning out, and it becomes a waste. So
Mhm.
that's what we're always looking for is, did I give them enough information to hook them again, hook them again? Now we can kind of move on and it becomes a
Yeah.
discussion.
Yeah, no, I think that's really cool because I think that it is. It's there's times that I have gone down a rabbit hole of somebody's just caught my attention or like a and like it's not I've heard this before, and when I was teaching in the advertising department, having worked in advertising is not necessarily bad. It's bad advertising that has ruined it for the rest of it. Like there
Yeah.
are some ads out there that we go, oh my gosh, I love that ad. I love that was the best ad. And then there's just so many that are interrupting us and just frustrating us, and it's not like, okay, it doesn't resonate with me because I'm not buying diapers now.
Yeah,
All
for sure.
those kinds of things. So it is finding the right audience at the right time with the right message in order to get them get them and get them to pay attention. So do you think that do you find that with your coaching and things like that, some of it is getting people to stand in their value, that they don't feel themselves that they're bringing value, or they don't feel like their products or services? Is that kind of part of it as well?
Yeah, I think they believe they've got the value, but they don't know how to show it.
Hmm.
And I think that's the biggest problem is they know they've got a good product, but they're trying to focus on the features to make it a better product. And this is another one that we see all the time. Somebody builds that first product, and instead of going out and selling it, they go, oh, I can make it better. And then they spend another X number of dollars building it better. And they end up with, the alpha version, the beta version, the delta, and they've got like 4 versions of it. And nobody has ever said, I'm going to buy your product. And so, yeah,
I'm
one of
guilty
my,
of doing that.
what,
I'll build all these courses. I love to build courses. I love to build training. Do I ever sell it? Not so much. But
right.
yeah, I'm guilty of doing that because I like to do the bright and shiny stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what inventors, a lot of people who aren't salespeople for companies, but have companies that they had to become their own salespeople, they they want to deliver the product. They want to, if you're a consultant, you want to do the consulting. You don't want to sell the consulting. If you've built a great mousetrap, you want to build better mousetraps. You don't want to be the one having to go out and sell it. And unfortunately, that's what ends up happening is they get so tied up in their tech that they actually can't step back and say, okay, do I have 50 customers prepared to buy this? And I use this example all the time. When Susan and I started the business in 2008, we had 4 sales training projects that were not built. But we went out to clients and said, do you need a cold calling skills course? We do. Do you need a course on lead generation? Yeah, we do. Would you like a course on closing skills? And we found out, and we took orders, and it turned out that everybody started talking about wanting closing skills training. But the more we had these discussions with them about what their problems were, it was lead generation was their problem. So our closing skills training, it didn't even get developed for 2 years. Everything got focused on lead generation. And we didn't have the first program until we had 5 customers and paid for the first program. And then we built it and we presented it once, got some feedback, presented it the chain, and every time now, we make little tweaks to it, but as things change. So there is a lot of that where you want to build the perfect product and then sell it. And in today's industries, unless you've got, you're building a car, different story, but a lot of products, you can build a minimal viable product and sell it and then put additions onto it. You see that in software all the time now.
Mm-hmm. So, a lot of your clients are business to business.
That's all business
your
to business.
B2B connection.
Yeah.
So, all of them. And so, when your clients are selling to other business clients, they have to sort of develop a multi-threaded approach. Isn't that sort of the way that obviously, like with bigger organizations, and they're selling an expensive product or service, that they have to talk to the procurement people and the IT people and all these different departments. And so do you help coach them on how to tell the right story to each different target audience?
So first of all, you and I are going to back up one piece. We never sell to procurement people. You always sell around procurement people because they are paid to find a product that is already in existence. So I don't know how many times in my career it's like, oh, you talk to purchasing department. No, I don't talk to purchasing department. I talk to the ownership, convince them they need my product, and then purchasing cuts me a PO. And if purchasing wants to go out and try to find other suppliers, I'm still the guy who wrote the proposal anyway. So, but yes, we have to talk to different people within it. We always talk about, there is the technical buyer, there's the financial buyer, and there's probably the user buyer. And in your case, there could be the procurement buyer too, who I don't give a damn about. But I want to make sure within an organization, if I'm back to the casino company, they sell to the data people, the marketing people, and the operations people, as well as the financial people. Mm-hmm. The operations, will it fit into our technical piece? The marketing, will it do what we want it to do? The users, can I make it work? And the finance and the CEO are looking at it going, will this make us more money? And it's a different way of doing things with each one of those. And it becomes your job, and this is where you have to be good in your selling, to be able to bring them all together, or else what you end up doing is you are only trying to sell it to the technical team, and then they're going to take it back to the president of the company and try to sell it to them. And that guy's sitting back there going, or woman's sitting back there going, yeah, we really don't need this, because they don't know how to build the case the same way. So you've got to be prepared to just say, no. We have to have all these people sitting at the table before we're going to make this presentation.
Yeah, because oftentimes it'll be that broken telephone thing. And organizations, I found that your competition isn't really your competition. Your competition is the status quo.
Yes, biggest one.
I don't know if people necessarily look at that, because I think we have a tendency of looking at, oh, well, this is what my competitors are doing, I'm going to do what they're doing. Yep. As opposed to realizing that what we need to do is move people away from the status quo, because to your point, there are people still using fax machines out there. Yep. The government, doctors are still using fax machines, which you think, like, in this day and age, you're like, hello, the 80s called, they want their
fax machine back.
Right. Their fax machine back. But that's a form of communication for certain people that aren't necessarily sitting in front of the computer all the time. So,
yep. And even just to throw in there, snail mail. Yeah. We have a lot of clients who are sending out packages or things to entice somebody using snail mail. And one of my favorites, and I should have had it close by here, I don't, it's the Tim Hortons gift card.
Okay.
Send somebody high level in a company, send them a Tim Hortons gift card and say, gee, because of COVID, we can't have a coffee. So here's a Tim's card. Buy yourself a coffee. I'm going to call you next Tuesday and we're going to have a quick chat. And you watch how quickly they will answer that phone. And even if they can't take your call then, you've still made a memorable impact on them. And when you call them back later and say, hey, Leslie, I sent you a Tim's gift card, wanted to talk to you at 10 o'clock, yesterday, but you weren't available. Do you have a few minutes right now? You're probably going to take that call, because you're just going to go, that was different. Yeah, that was interesting.
It was remarkable, which I love. It was
remarkable.
That's Seth Godin. I always say, if there was a church of Seth Godin, I'd be in the front pew saying, hallelujah. Be remarkable, be remarkable. Which it doesn't take, it sounds like it doesn't even take that much to be remarkable. No, it doesn't. When you think about it, because most of your competitors are irremarkable or unremarkable.
You know,
True.
it's just, you think about the status quo all the way across it.
Mm.
And you know, those are things that you do that all of a sudden they light up. Me, when I go on stage, how many times do I actually take fencing equipment on stage with me and use? I walk out with my mask on, my big coaching jacket, I got a sword in my hand, and I walk out there. Do you not think everybody in the audience is going, this guy's going to talk sales? What the heck? You've captured their attention for the first 60 to 90 seconds. Off comes the mask, and I start my introduction. They want to know what the hell this is all about. And I have had so many people come back to me over the years and say, you're that fencing guy, aren't you? And this was a real eye awakener, just or eye opener before COVID hit. I was doing something locally and I walked on the stage without my fencing equipment. And afterwards, like 3 people in the audience came up to me and said, where's your fencing equipment? What the heck? And it's like, oh my God, my main prop for being memorable. And I got to the point where I was thinking, these people all know me. I don't need to use it. Half the audience were people I'd never met before. And I let it slip. Reminded me when I get back on stage again or get back in front of people, I've got to go back to the basics that work.
Mm-hmm.
Bob's the sales trainer who knows fencing. How many fencing people do you know? Right?
You're the only one I know.
There you go.
Yeah. So I can't believe our time is up already. I mean, I'm always, I'm like here. I'm like, oh, tell me more. I'm always learning from you. You're so fascinating. So, do you have any sort of last minute mantra, belief, any parting sort of advice to people, or like, you know?
Yeah, I think the biggest one is the follow up.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone asks me that. How much follow up is too much? Follow up is too much when the person says, leave me alone. So you continue to follow up until they say yes or no. Most people follow up once or twice and they let it go. So continually going back and going back and going back. So you send out 50 emails and 25 are open. The 25 that didn't get opened, most people just go, oh, and they leave it alone. No, you resend to those 25. And if only 10 get open, you resend again. So you continue to follow up until the person says to you, go away or tell me more. So that's one of the biggest ones. Number 2 is find a system that works for you. Keep your emails short, keep your proposals short, keep your demonstrations short, and ask a lot of really good questions. I've got a program called the PASTA formula, and it's talking about identify the pain, amplify the pain, tell them a story, tell them your solution briefly, set a timeline with them, and ask them to act. And it follows this, and it gets people, it'll shorten the buying cycle for you, and it will help you close more sales. It's a real simple piece, but there's a lot of things in it, and it's very powerful.
Well, that's the interesting part. I think that my experience with some of my clients or people that are in my courses or things like that I've taught is people expect there to be an easy button.
Yeah.
And it's simple enough. The process is simple enough. To your point, as soon as you have the strategy down, what are your goals or objectives? Who's your target audience? It's all going back to the fundamentals and the basics. And it's keep moving forward. And I'm guilty as just as anybody else is of like, oh, I don't want to follow it. Are people going to get upset if I, I'm going to tick somebody off? And I have been just as guilty as the next person of going, right, I meant to get back to that person. Oh, crumb, I'm so glad you came back to me, or I'm so glad you reminded me, or now's the perfect time to talk. It's sometimes it's that, and we're all guilty. We're all being bombarded with so much information more often than not with digital. And I know we could talk all day about this because there's another gal that I just saw, my friend Phil Gerbershak that I talked with last week. He was talking about a girl who talks about digital body language, which now I'm going down that rabbit hole. And so far as like, how are we communicating?
Shiny objects, get back to it.
No, I love it though. I love all of the things about how can I'm all about, as you know, building relationships, deepening relationships, helping people stand in their value, all those kinds of things. It's what you and I are like this when it comes to all that stuff. So that's why I started doing these chats. So I really appreciate you. Your insights. I've learned more today as I do.
Thanks for inviting me. I appreciate it as always.
So let people know how can they get in touch with you, Bob Weese?
Our website is B2B, that's the number 2, B2BSalesConnections.com. And more than happy to, or look me up on LinkedIn, Robert J. Weese. and more than happy to connect with anybody, help them out any way I can, and help you grow your business, because that's what it's all about. We need to find those sales if we're going to grow and become successful as business people and grow our business so we can employ other people. And that's the bottom line here.
Because if we're not making money, what's
Can't
the
spend
point?
can't spend money, can't have fun.
Right? I mean, that's the whole thing. I mean, I love to do all the marketing stuff, but if we're not actually converting people and we're not making money, then all of this is for naught. So
Yeah, exactly.
sales is the most important part of that whole thing.
For sure. Thanks, Leslie. I really appreciate you inviting me to join you today. And thanks to everybody else for tuning in. More than happy to get a hold of anybody or feedback to anybody that needs help.
Awesome. And also, we want to know from anybody that's listening, whether you're listening now or you're listening later or watching, please do let us know your key takeaway. We want to know what is the biggest aha, your takeaway. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or to Bob. Or if you already know me and you want an introduction to Bob, just drop my name. You don't need me to introduce.
There you go. For sure.
Yeah. Well, thanks again, Bob. And yeah, next week I'm talking with my friend Wayne Lee. He'll be interesting. I won't let him put me under hypnosis. I'm not there. I'm not quite there yet, even though I'm a big fan of NLP. But we're going to talk about all of those like positive messaging and rah-rah cheerleading. So it'll be a really interesting chat with him, and he's a funny guy. So
excellent. Look forward to watching.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks again, Bob. And
bye-bye.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye for now.